Long time no see. We're back at it again with another half truth. Um, this time specifically, I want to start right off the bat with the understanding that what you're about to see is pitching how he managed to make these nightmare horses. And he very specifically talks about the sand that Sandman has. It's very specific. And there's also gold in the eyes of these nightmares. And I've come to the understanding, and I've seen a lot of it, where it's always the dreams that are being transformed into nightmares versus um, I guess most things in media tend to somewhat touch on it, but this one actually is a really good job of turning actual dreams into nightmares. um, the darkness, our understanding of our own darkness and all the things that lie between us and our dreams, is just this. Like, it is the very factor of existence that when we dream as children, eventually we stop being so excited about dreaming. We get less and less excited about having to face the world. We don't wake up the same when we're adults. We don't wake up excited, almost like there's no bridge, or there's no collapse of the reality that we're dreaming about versus when we're awake, which is why not all kids wake up to be grumpy adults. But there are those who tend to, and it seems more often than not, you end up falling into that state where you don't really dream all too well, and you wake up and you're exhausted and you feel tired already, even though you just slept. This is sort of the idea. Like, there's that part of us that, if we identify with it, if we chose to believe that our dreams were real, that we might die. And that's the potentiality of darkness. Darkness is always that idea, even, like, he touches on it a little bit, where it's like, ever since human beings were young and their civilization young, he was always the thing that they feared the most, which, you know, for obvious reasons, you have no idea what's in the dark. The fear of the unknown, the fear of what could be out there, and what it might do, it was always like that, no matter what it was. And again, not all aspects of ourselves are treated the same. When we see fairies, when we see Santa, when we see all of these other things, we're happy to see them. They bring us joy. We enjoy mythological. We love the idea of gift bringers that exist in a different way than the rest of us do. But for most of us, the understanding is that darkness is the only thing that's real. Most human beings have darkness in them that shrouds their dreams, crushes their dreams, and ultimately just doesn't live up to the rest of life that we knew it as a kid. And most of us don't remember. It's literally shrouded in darkness. Our entire childhood, everything before we remember what we remember, that's shrouded in darkness. And those are all of the aspects of yourself that fall into darkness as you grow up, as you mature. And yeah, again, not all aspects are treated the same. Like, for him, his very existence is that he is darkness. He is the aspect that nobody wants to look at, nobody wants to see. And that idea continues to convey in, well, the main character, one of the main characters, but literally the main character is Jack, because cold, right? Like, you're frigid, you're cold. Like, it's not a warming thing. It's not Easter bunnies, it's not Santa. It can be terrifying, because, darkness and cold can be very terrifying. this idea that Pitch has his own lair is really good. And it's just dark. That's all it is. Just constant shadows. And his ability to control dream sand is very interesting because, again, as I've experienced with dreams, and I'm an expert on what I can share, is that my dreams never felt like nightmares, but I always woke up exhausted. And still I started to intend how I was going to wake up and what I was going to dream about. Because when you go in with an intent, it changes what the relationship is that you have, not only with yourself, but also with life. And there's so many different fantasies and different ways in which we don't interweave them, and dreaming is definitely one of them. Dreaming as its own aspect just doesn't function very well in our society. We know very little about why we dream, let alone the importance behind continuing to notice what it is that we dream. Because very few people know that it is a creative force to have dreams, let alone envision them, be a part of them, and exist excitedly about them, around them. And children are always able to travel through realms. They travel through realms all the time. I like the conveyance of there being something left behind to allow for that travel, but kids do it. Kids don't exist in a fixed reality. What was dreams and magic and superpowers and, entities and bad guys, like, all of those things were things that you dreamed about when you were a kid. All of those aspects existed with you when you were a kid. It's just that over time, and definitely as we exist here, we have to know the difference between the two. So we finally set that in stone when we're teenagers. We finally make it concrete by the time we forget our childhood. The moment we forget the large majority of it, because there are people who do remember their childhood, but the moment you forget large chunks of your childhood, from the moment you can remember that, that's when you decided that the stories you recognize, the dreams that turn into darkness, those then become things to avoid in your waking life. You're no longer going to be a child. You're no longer going to be many things. A dreamer. Somebody who's able to travel between realms. Somebody who's able to exist well into life, long after everything is said and done. And it's tragic, because so much of what makes you unique is that aspect, is the ability to continue to dream, is the ability to continue to show up for your dreams. We always get vague impressions of dream-like things that come up for us, and it's always serving something. It's always serving you in particular, but it also serves your own storylines, your own story beats that you recognized as a kid. To say that you had more creative power and influence when you were a child is absolutely correct. There's so much stuff that, because you forget, you don't know how to take responsibility for now as an adult. So, since he's on screen, Claus here made it a point to talk about how he himself is childlike still on the inside. And that's very important, because childlike relationship with yourself is much better than being childish around conflicts and problems. Because those are parts of us that are stunted. They're trapped in the dark. And just like the glowing eyes of the mare, those dreams are there. It's in there. It's in the DNA of it. It's just unrecognizable for the rest of it. You can see it in its eyes, literally, that this being has dreams, that this life that they want to live exists in some form, but just the shell of it is a nightmare. The shell of it seems like it would trample you, kill you, go wild, and just rage and rampage and destroy you from the inside out. But that's what we decided was the fear that was going to be on the other side. That's how we decided to divide ourselves when we come into this life. That we have to validate it. We have to be validated somehow, some way. If we're not validated in that way, it's okay to leave it behind. It's okay to be afraid of it. It's okay to deny it. Like, again, I'm my own expert, so when I look at my life, it was like using my voice, talking. It can be a superpower, and it has been. There have been so many times in which I've just opened my mouth and have helped people get past very hard things that existed in their life. Opened my mouth and illuminated things that they didn't think were connected, but it supported them in making decisions, choices that were stronger for them, long before I even really knew what I was doing or how I was impacting other people's lives. And that relationship hasn't really changed. It's just now I've matured into the recognition that that is a part of me. That's a dream that I've always wanted, was to impact other people's lives, to be able to read a script and not be felt bound to it, like I have to follow it beat for beat. Like, that's your spirit. That's the core of who you are. You can't deny the core of who you are. Otherwise, your life is going to continuously be getting chased down by nightmares. You can see the dream, but what it would take is impossible. Everything that it could be a nightmare. Like, the aspect of it, every bit of Rise of the Guardians is really good because it does touch on these things. It's very vague, but it at least attempts to piece together the idea of what it is. And yes, just as much as pitch as I've seen like a theory out there. Sorry for whoever made that theory. I wish I could just I might tag you, put you in the description. But they made the theory that, or rather, no, it was somebody who animated making Pitch a guardian. Technically he is a guardian, but he's protecting you against yourself. He's protecting you against your own dreams. He's protecting you against your own fantasy, your own belief in magic, which is exactly what he does in this movie, which is interesting because, again, that's touching on truth. It is true. Your own understanding of what pitch is, what darkness is. That's what keeps you separated. That's the fear that has so much power over you, that you feel like you might die coming up against it, but it's not actual death. It's just what you know it to be isn't what it is, and it's good and bad to the extreme. Most of us divide up our morals into good and bad, but it doesn't necessarily mean whatever that is a good thing and necessarily a bad thing, because there's an in-between for everything. There's a neutral stance for everything, and it's really good to see that with an opinion. Like, opinions change. That's a really good way of seeing your own life as well, is that it's one big opinion, but there are things that are fundamental that go a little bit deeper and are harder to deal with, because those things make up who you are. They've structured your life so far. So if they weren't there to structure that life, what would you have? And that's where pitch comes in. Pitch is that adult structure, that idea that you can't have your dreams, that they're dark, that they're tainted, that they're going to attack you on sight, that they're going to stomp you out, kidnap everything that's wonderful in the world, everything that's magical in the world, and snuff it out. Because it's not safe for you to have that. And that's where I'll leave this one here. It's been a while. I've got no excuses. Because it would just be an excuse, and that will always reflect poorly. Exist as if the dream can